Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Lost chapter for Ursula, Gentle Fist. The synergy units for the event are the returning Ursula, Cinque, Freya, and Gabranth. The featured units will be getting their force enhancement boards unlocked. Ursula FR will be making their debut. Ursula and Cinque will be getting their C90 awakening and reworks. We will be fighting two killer scissors. They have 50 million HP. The turn requirement is 60. The HP requirements is 10,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. As we are no longer have Lufania Plus fights, the boss guide will be focused primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. As your party has low force levels at the start of the era, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. For this fight, the boss force gauge is broken into 3 thresholds. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 40%, your party can't increase Brave beyond 100% of its Max BRV Cap. Brave refund for HP attacks will also cannot go beyond 100% of the Max BRV Cap. The boss will gain Brave damage resistance of up 10%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 60%, the field effect will be stronger where your party cannot increase Brave beyond 80% of the Max BRV Cap. They also can't retain more than 80% of Max Brave from their HP attacks. The boss will gain Brave damage resistance of 20%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 80%, the field effect will be stronger where your party cannot increase Brave beyond 50% of the Max BRV Cap. They also can't retain more than 50% of Max Brave from their HP attacks. The boss will gain Brave damage resistance of 30%. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. Compared to the previous fight, this fight isn't really a dangerous one nor it is a difficult one. The boss has a predictable moveset. The aura will restrict your Max Brave gains and potential damage output. As long as you have great party auras for support, you should be able to handle the fight without any difficulty. Ursula's S2 can bypass the auras. At the 100% threshold, the boss will use its force ability, Bubble Breath +++ and activates its force time for 5 turns. The boss force ability, Bubble Breath +++, is a inflict break, followed by a guaranteed hit, reset break status, AoE Brave plus HP attack. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with counter of 5 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the bosses will gain HP damage up boost of 50%. It will use Hydro Shot Plus during force time. Hydro Shot Plus is a stronger variant of the normal Hydro Shot. Upon hitting a broken target or breaking the target, it will inflict a 1-turn paralysis. The boss also gains 2 buffs that raises its speed and defense by 50%. To freeze the enemy's force time, you need to use a melee force ability which is Ursula, Gabranth, Not, and Desch FR at the moment. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Fran, Ignis, Lily-Set, Maria, and Dark Knight Cecil are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, aura type HP damage up calls like Kumari, Alisai, Priyash, Leo and Locke are also viable. Most recently C90 units have aura type HP damage up bonuses. You can use Dissidia DB Call Finder to find out more. Other than the force ability, all the boss attacks are non-guaranteed hit attacks. Redia LDCA can protect your party for 3 turns with its blink buff. You can also gain break immunity using Ursula or Yang LDCA. Kai Smash support buff from his hero support also offer break immunity. His Brave Leak debuff is great to ensure your party will always have some Brave left whenever you do HP attacks. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. For any endgame fights like Lufania and Shinryu, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. You can consider bringing Selphie, Lena, Ishtala, Yuna, Garnet, Purim, Rem, and Ramza. Selphie can make your party hit hard with her guaranteed launch debuff, while Lena can ensure your party is always safe with her powerful HP regen buffs. Both Lena and Selphie are top-notch debuff evasion supports. Yuna can offer debuff cleansing as well other than her powerful BT auras. The boss doesn't have a lot of HP attacks, but it can be very dangerous with its bubble breath attacks if they inflict break on your party. It is advisable to bring a damage mitigator if you doing a hit and counter run. You can consider Leela, Beatrix, Snow, Zack, Edge, Warrior of Light, Orin, and Golov. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, or Edge are great here. In addition to the support and tanks, you can bring the following units if you have them. The boss will inflict debuffs on its Rend AoE Brave attack and can inflict paralysis with Hydro Shot Plus during force time. So having debuff evasion or debuff cleansing utility are very useful here. Examples are Sidor, Pain, Mog, Baldheer and Jelket. The boss will buff themselves with 2 framed buffs when Hydro Shot or the Plus variant. If you have Vincent BT or Aerith or Yuffie, you can negate the boss from buffing themselves. Other than Ursula and Yang, other break immunity options include Core and Alphanod. Locke also offers break immunity with his BT aura. Optimal FR to use for this fight are Gabranth, Ursula, Desch and Camlanod. If you fulfill the 3 conditions of Ice, Disable and Launch, you can nuke the boss down fast before it could pose any threat with Camlanod FR. Gabranth, the featured BT unit, has a wide arsenal of rebreak mechanics and a very strong BT aura. Ursula offers one of the strongest auxiliary FR and you gain to 999% with supercharging. Pair the supercharger with cane firing lancets in the background and the bosses will be a dead crab meat in no time. Desch FR could well here as a countermeasure due to delay effect of the boss turns. However, you will need to pair him with turn disabler like Camlanod, Kryl, Fang to make his FR better. As Shinryu is about building up your force gauge chargers units are great to deploy here. Characteristics of force charger are the unit have substantial amount of instant turn non-attacking abilities. At max force enhancement level 30, one such instant turn ability can supercharge the force gauge by a whooping 50%. You can easily amplify your force time damage by abusing the supercharging mechanics. Examples of such force gauge chargers units are Kryl, Braska, Pernello and Ignis. For other recommendations, you can consider the following. For tanks, you can bring Warrior of Light, Orin, and Steiner. Freya and Kain can offers off-turn damage and ensure your Brave always retained at the start of the turn. Lael offers decent turn manipulation with his LD and S2 for delays. Damage dealers like Machina and Titus are useful here as well. Make sure you pair with strong auras as the Brave caps will be lower unless you freeze the boss force gauge with a melee base FR. If you are doing the hit and counter game, constant Brave refunding and powerful defense boost are important. Rosa and Paladin Cecil offer powerful aura for the party. Mog can constantly cleanse debuffs with his follow-up and offer strong healing with his LD. Cinque has become an awesome damage nuker with her C90 awakening. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. Like Lufania, Shinryu fights also features aura boosts for the boss when their HP are depleted to a certain threshold. The stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight and 79%. Like other Shinryu fights, the enemy's force gauge will charge faster as their HP depletes. As the enemy's force gauge reaches 40% and above, the boss will apply aura that reduces your brave gains from battery skills or brave refund from HP attacks. Their brave damage resistances also improve as the gauge builds up. The boss force ability Bubble Breath +++ is a inflict break, followed by a guaranteed hit, AoE brave plus HP. While in force time, the boss will gain additional HP damage bonus boost and uses Hydro Shot Plus as its core attack. Hydro Shot Plus is a single target brave attack that could paralyze a target that is broken or upon inflicting break on the target. At the 79% and 29% HP threshold, the boss will use Bubble Breath ++, which will set your current brave to 0 and inflict turn rate down debuff for 3 turns. The boss has a standard damage rotation cycle. It will start off-rend, Hydro Shot and ends with Bubble Breath. Bubble Breath is an AoE brave plus HP attack with 1 turn AoE delay. Unlike the original Lufania fight, the Lost Chapter Shinryu fight doesn't feature a texture change where the boss will change its texture from blue to green. Overall, this fight isn't that difficult as long as you have units that can handle the mechanics. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, Edge, or 8 will have a nice field day in this battle. Counter units like Orin, Gladio, Kor, or Beatrix also works wonders here. If you have Camlanaut, Machina or Titus, you can easily do boss no turns thanks to Camlanaut broken FR mechanics. You can negate bulk of the boss mechanics with debuff evasion or cleansing supports. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Similar to any Lufania fights, for Shinryu fights, the boss will also gain stats boosts and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete the boss's HP to a certain threshold. However, Shinryu bosses will also gain HP damage reduction auras as well. The threshold's trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 79% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. It will raise its brave damage and brave gain reduction auras to 80%. It will also reduce your HP damage dealt by 50%. At 79% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300% and the HP damage dealt reduction auras to 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain reductions, you can bring a brave gain up support like Agrias, Ram, or Quistis. With the recent units released, you shouldn't have any problem in handling the brave gain or damage reduction auras. For HP damage reduction auras, HP damage up calls will only partly offset against the reductions. However, you can easily overwrite them with your party force time. As we progress through the era, we will gain access to units with FR that allows you to build up your force time HP damage bonuses up to 999%. Learning on how to take full advantage of the damage window in Shinryu fight holds the key on how to make Shinryu fights easier. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. At the 79% and 29% threshold, the boss will use Bubble Breath ++. Bubble Breath ++ will set your party brave to 0 of fixed value of the group. You can avoid this if you have max brave floor. Ursula and Von BT auras are some examples that provide this. It is advisable that when you trigger this, make sure you have space out ample turns between the boss and your party. The other disruptive mechanics that you need to watch out for is the Hydro Shot Plus. The boss will use Hydro Shot Plus only when the force time is active. Hydro Shot Plus is the same as the normal Hydro Shot except that it will inflict paralysis upon breaking or on broken targets. Debuff evasion will help to prevent this. Let's cover a bit on the boss rotation cycle. It is a standard rotation cycle attack where you can plan your damage mitigation or healing utility. Avoid trigger the force time after the boss use Hydro Shot. You can end up facing back-to-back Bubble Breath which could end your fight early. Now let's briefly talk about the moves in the rotation cycle. The boss will start off with Rend, which is an AoE brave attack that inflict a frame defense down 50% debuff for 5 turns. Next, the boss will use Hydro Shot, where it is a single target brave attack that buffs the boss with 50% speed up and defense up for 5 turns. Lastly, it will use Bubble Breath, where it is an AoE brave plus HP attack and delays all target by 1 turn. To handle the debuffs, you can bring debuff cleansing units like Pain, Mog, Bald Here, Sidor, Yuna or Pernello. You can also prevent the debuff by bringing the following debuff evasion supports like Selpha, Lena, Ignis, Aerith, and Afma. As the boss buffs itself often, you can dispel them with dispellers like Pain, Bald Here, Shellcat, Ferris, Seymour, Vanille, Cloud, Sid Highwind, Sid Rains, Yuffie, or Reno. You can also make use of Vanille Sphere on each slot of an unit like Orin. I have come to the last slide of the guide. By now, you should have at least one FR. Generally, you just charge up your force gauge. Have the FR unit activate their force time with their force ability. Prepare for a big damage phase either through a unit burst phase or supercharge the gauge with Kane's follow-up. To build up the bonuses efficiently, you need bring a force gauge charger. Examples are Pernello, Kryle, Ignis or Braska. At force level 30, these units can boost the force charge with 50% with their instant turn, non-attacking ability on top of the force time conditions. If you bring Kane or using Kane BT friend as support, have him activate his BT aura and let him stay in the air firing the lancets while your force gauge charger is spamming his or her instant turns. If you have Camlanot fully built with FR and BT, you can abuse his powerful FR mechanics by fulfilling 3 of the following conditions. 1. Constant launches. Selfie LD debuff, Kai's hero support or Sid Rain's LDCA on your burst unit. 2. Ice enchant. You can use Karasame LDCA for party ice enchant or bring an ice enchanter like Celis, Onion Knight, or Karasame himself. Snow also offers party-wide ice enchant with his BT aura. 3. Make sure you inflict a turn disable debuff on the boss. Camlanot BT is the easiest to set up. You can go through a setup process for this as well. When all conditions are met, the party can meet 80% HP damage bonus with a full party launch. Now let's recap on the boss key mechanics. The boss has a standard attack rotation cycle, Rend, Hydro Shot and Bubble Breath. Prepare your damage mitigation or healing when the boss is going to use Bubble Breath. The boss can set your Brave to 0 at 79% and 29% with Bubble Breath ++. Make sure you have ample turns before the boss could act. Use debuff evasion units or debuff cleansers to handle the debuffs from Rend and use Dispeller to dispel the buffs from Hydro Shot. Don't get broken during boss force time, as Hydro Shot Plus will inflict paralysis if it used on a broken target or breaks the target. This fight is easy if you have optimum units for the fight, but the turn count is actually tight. You might want to consider to saving your strongest units if you are attempting the current ongoing Dare to Defy event. Now I will make a quick overview on the FR of featured unit, Ursula. This is one of the strongest auxiliary type FR. You can easily gain 999% with supercharging, and the conditions are actually one of the easiest to fulfill. For the first condition, you will always meet the condition as Ursula has a 20% max brave floor aura whenever she is in the party. Have everyone has at least 20% brave at the start of the turn will boost the gauge by 15%. For the second condition, you need to have some powerful battery supports. Ursula can fulfill this easily with her abilities. You can make use of powerful brave retention type BT auras like Garnet, Ishtala, Snow, or Bartz. Steiner can fulfill this with his LD buff, and Rude can fulfill with his healing convert to brave mechanic. Kryle can also constantly ensure your brave is withheld with her EX Porum can battery after every attack she does. The upcoming BT unit, Charlotta, also works well with her. As long as your brave is capped, you can get 30% HP bonus. So, if you do a supercharge ability with Pernello for example, at max force level 30, She can uptick the HP damage bonus by a whopping 90% with her instant turn non-attacking abilities. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight tomorrow. Bye.